The environmental movement is closely linked with a rising standard of living in industrialized nations and is largely limited to upper and middle income groups.
History of conservation. The conservation movement slowly developed in the 19th century, although it first started in the forestry methods pioneered by the Germans and French in the 17th and 18th centuries. America's conservation movement was stimulated by an expedition into Wyoming in 1871 by F.V. Hayden. Hayden discovered and photographed the depletion of wildlife and plant growth in the Yellowstone region. The expedition led to the creation of one of the world's first national parks in 1872. In the early 1900s, America's conservation movement was firmly divided into two groups: conservationists, such as Gifford Pinchot, who was known as the father of American forestry, and the preservationists, who wanted to protect the forest for the greater good for the greatest length. That's all for me, Jesus.
Contrary to popular belief that stated that Sacagawea founded conservation, the real creator of conservation was Gifford Pinchot. He was the first chief of the U.S. Forest Service and is famous for his advocacy of conservation of forests. He coined the term conservation and was incredibly influential in changing governmental policies in the environment, completely restructuring the way government dealt with public land.
We'll be right back with more on conservation preservation.
Hi there. What is your credit score? If it's under the score of 500, then you have some serious credit issues. If you need help in boosting that and gaining some extra confidence, dial 1-800-333-3333.
Reasons to conserve water. Feeding the world. Agriculture. Helps cure what ails us. Medicine. A wealth of natural resources. Economy. Life support for the planet. Ecosystems. The respect for creation. Ethics. Research and study. History. Oil, a non-renewable resource, is being used more rapidly as prices climb day by day across the world. Projections now indicate that at the current rate of use, fossil fuels will run out within the next 40 to 80 years. If our society shifted to more fuel-efficient hybrid cars and we conserved oil as much as possible, this problem could at least be partially remedied. Because governments don't currently place a great emphasis on conservation of delicate resources such as oil, problems arise often that put our future in jeopardy.
This is why we need to conserve. There are several factors responsible for the endangered status of the species, all mostly directly caused by us. People destroy and degrade the habitat, directly kill the species, introduce exotic species, and spread disease. These are viewed as the four mindless horsemen of the environmental apocalypse. That's why we need to conserve. And when you want to ask what we can do to conserve, well, what we can do is, we can do many things. First, we have to assess the situation at hand and what is causing these environmental problems. One way to use this method is to create a guideline for addressing the conservation policy and management issue. Cochrane has joined many various conservation preservation movements, such as the American Wildlife Foundation, Canadian Wildlife Foundation, or Defenders of Wildlife. These foundations have already attempted to help change what we create. What are you doing? Areas around the world have already been greatly affected by not conserving and preserving. What you can do is spread the word in your urban area. Plant trees and allow the maintaining of homeostasis. The important word homeostasis we've learned since the 9th grade biology class is very important in conservation preservation. Do not hunt or harm various animals, and let species live like you want to live, like you want to live. So make sure they live how they would like to live. We are dependent on the environment, material, and resources. So what you can do is not waste various materials, and do not think of your wants but your actual needs. Every little contribution that you put forth counts. Everyone has to lay a helping hand in what you do to do the right thing. Besides joining foundations, creating plans for yourself to file, and by donating money, what each and every one of us can do is coming up with new ways to conserve and what we deem necessary into conserving. Because our resources are decreasing at a more rapid pace, we need to act now before our environmental apocalypse comes to destroy us all.
The current status of conservation. A plan proposed on May 30th by President Bush is set to cut dozens of conservation programs in favor of his energy plan. These conservation programs saved the United States $9 billion and 122 barrels of oil in 2004 alone. While Bush's energy plan to investigate alternative sources of power is admirable, cutting these conservation programs will have devastating effects on our economy and the rest of our country.
Austin, what are your opinions on conservation preservation?
I'm kind of in the middle of something, but I would say conservation preservation is pretty necessary, and we should all take part, and that's about it. Thanks.
Do you think it helps the animals and plants?
Absolutely. It is very beneficial to everyone, all of us. So do your part.
Billy, what are your opinions on conservation preservation?
I feel that conservation preservation is a necessity for our country to take part in, so we can save the lives of many plants and animals through this process.
Is conservation preservation costly?
That is still undetermined, but if we act now, then the cost that we'll pursue will clearly be outweighed by the benefits down the road. So Matt, how do you feel about conservation preservation?
I think conservation preservation will greatly help our society through environmental pros and social pros. But what we have to do is we have to take a course of action and create the necessary steps to providing a safe and positive environment for us.
What are those steps, sir?
Well, one way to use the divide and conquer approach.
Are you cheating?
No. We have to do is abandon the divide and conquer approach. And I just stuttered so bad, but I'm going to keep going. Okay? Improve agriculture, forest, and species life. Pay more attention to the environment, including the amount of funding spent, and create areas where you can only conserve and not disrupt. Demonstrate in schools and through propaganda life if we do not conserve, and allow people to know how important conservation preservation is. Also, the government has to set up funds and foundations as well. And those are my opinions on conservation preservation. Peace.